Okay. Well, welcome everyone to another spotlight discussion today with our uh, faith leaders here in Evanston, who are a critical part of our um, the mayor's pandemic task force that we created. And so I'm so pleased to have two of our leaders who are part of that task force. We have some additional faith leaders that are also part of that task force, but two with us today. One, Rabbi London, who is with Beth Emet, is with us, and then Reverend Michael Neighbors, who is the pastor and reverend at Second Baptist Church here in Evanston. So welcome to both of you. Thank you for being with us. This is an opportunity for us to share with the viewers and the residents of Evanston, some of the challenges that different sectors are facing, but also some of the good that has come out of this terrible event that we're all dealing with from these different sectors as well. And I know there's good that's come out of the faith community. So I'm excited to have the conversation. And I thought maybe what we could do for the viewers is just share with them how the faith community in Evanston is organized in terms of different associations and groups that may have existed and that did exist prior to the pandemic. So Rabbi London, if you wouldn't mind just sharing with viewers that, and then if there's any that she's forgotten or that you want to add to Reverend Neighbors, we'll have you jump in.
Sure.
Well, one of the interfaith organizations we call the Evanston Interfaith Clergy and Leaders. And this is an association for ordained clergy and other leaders because not every religious community has ordained leadership. So that's why we call it clergy and leaders. We have members of the Buddhist community, the Baha'i community, as well as Christian, Jewish, and Muslim in our in that group. And we're a group that meets monthly to discuss issues within our community and ways in which we can support our community and also support each other. Over the last 4 years, just briefly, that organization has organized itself to be more activist. After the 2016 election, we felt that there were many people in our community, and particularly undocumented, and people of color and others who were being threatened after that election. We felt like we needed to come together as a community and stand up for that which was right and just and compassionate. And since then, I think because we've organized ourselves in that way, that we have found ourselves to be quite nimble when it comes to other crises within our community. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Neighbors to talk about some of the other organizations, and we can talk a little bit also more about what Evanston Interfaith Clergy and Leaders has done.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. And in addition to the Evanston Interfaith Clergy and Leaders Group, there are a couple of other clergy organizations in Evanston. One of them is Evanston Own It, and it is an organization primarily made of pastors and ministers who are in the 5th Ward. And it is an African-American organization that is designed to try to address the particular needs and issues that African Americans are facing. As you know, Mayor, one of the big pieces that they do is an annual concert where they actually raise dollars for the mayor's youth summer jobs program. And that's been going on for years and years. So that's a strong group. And another group is called the Evanston Pastors Fellowship. It's another group that is predominantly African-American, not all African-American, but both of these are ecumenical. They represent various denominations in the community, and they are not just African-American, but they also include Haitian and Belize congregations that are located in the community. So they're not as, I think, politically focused as Evanston Interfaith is. I think their focus is more on trying to provide resources for local churches and pastors.
Great. So that's just a good starting point. So we have these different organizations of faith leaders here in town. And you have been meeting more frequently as a result of this pandemic. And could you talk to us about what are some of the key challenges that the faith community is dealing with as a result of this pandemic? And let's start with you, Reverend Neighbors, on that.
So I think there Mayor, probably three areas from my perspective that faith leaders have been struggling with in terms of challenges. One of them, obviously, is keeping in touch with their congregations. You know, there's nothing like a worship service. There's nothing like a Shabbat in terms of coming together and seeing everybody and being able to communicate and talk. That fellowship has ceased to exist the way that we have been accustomed to. So part of the challenge is keeping in touch with the congregants. Another challenge, obviously, is the reorientation that houses of worship have had to create for ministries and mission. And that includes online. Everything is online now. So we've had to make our adjustments to have our worship services online. We've had to make adjustments to have all of our teaching moments online, whether it's Bible study or other forms of instruction for members of the church and leaders. And we also have had to have all of our ministry groups meeting online as well. So we had to really have houses of worship learn how to do that very quickly. And I think the third challenge that houses of worship are facing and leaders are probably financial obligations. I know that there's some houses of worship that have had to struggle with laying off staff members and personnel and sort of either lowering hours or letting people go because finances are a bit of a struggle. And with the online piece, in addition to the learning piece, we've had to teach our folks how to give online as well. So, you know, that has been
pass the plate when you're online. Yes.
Yeah, right. So all of those have been challenges from my perspective. Yeah.
Andrea, do you have anything to add to those challenges?
Well, you know, we finance ourselves a little differently in the Jewish community with, you know, ongoing annual membership commitments. So people have paid those in different ways. So we haven't had that challenge right away, although our fiscal year ends at the end of June, and so we don't know what's going to happen. I think, though, a big challenge is that, as Reverend NABORS was saying, as we all know, that religious communities are used to gathering in a particular place, and we can't do that. And also singing together. And now there seems to be a lot of research that is showing that actually singing is the worst thing that we can do together because droplets go into the air.
Yeah.
You know, we don't think that choirs or people coming together to sing will happen for more than a year. So this is really, in the last few weeks, I think, very disorienting to the religious community, because even if you can get together, what can we get together and do? 6 feet apart is not far enough apart if we're going to sing together. So there's a lot of other things that we need to be thinking about and considering. And also, I think in terms of the financial issues, you know, we all have buildings that we're supporting that we need to pay for, and we have a building staff, and so far, we haven't had to let anybody go. We have put our building staff to use doing those deferred maintenance projects that we kept hoping that we'd have time to do. We're like, well, now I got the time to do them. So people have been going in and doing that. But at some point, you know, we're nervous about what's going to happen if we can't open up our building. You know, and I think the other thing that we really have to think about as a religious community are life cycle events.
Yes.
Weddings, funerals. For the Jewish community, bar and bat mitzvah has been a particularly difficult stream, so people who can't go to the funeral can see it. I was at a funeral just a few days ago, and we had people participating in the funeral, one from Israel and one from Virginia, and there was a possibility of doing that. We had the microphone over by the camera so that they could participate in the service of that. But then, how do we comfort the mourners? We have a tradition of people gathering together, and now we have to do that on Zoom. And how do we give our condolences when 30 people are on a screen? And lots of things that we've had to work out. And the bar and bat mitzvah has been a big thing. It's how do you ask your 13-year-old to lead worship on Zoom? Do we want to do it on Zoom? We postponed many of our b'nai mitzvah to the fall, and now all of a sudden we're looking and saying, oh dear, what's going to happen with the fall and next spring? And all these kids who have, and that's been a struggle.
Yeah. I think it's there's so many hard things about a pandemic, but one of them is not being able to gather for celebrations or memorials like you talked about, and that really breaks your heart. And you know, hopefully we get through this quicker than we may think right now. but also that, we're able to come up with some really innovative and creative ways to still celebrate and memorialize lives and people. Can you talk about what are your plans, given the uncertainty that we're all facing? What are your plans, or how are you going about planning for the next several months? And what does reopening look like to your places of worship?
Well, let me say, Mayor, that over the next several months, we plan to remain in isolation and to try to increase our proficiencies in online services in terms of what we're doing. So we also want to be of assistance and help to other houses of worship and congregations in the community. But that means that our social media platform is going to be Zoom meetings for the foreseeable future. We'll have live stream worship services and the like. We take advantage of YouTube and our website, and we take advantage of, for our young people, other apps that are out there like house parties. You can play bingo. There's so many different things that have been created.
That's the creative stuff, yeah.
Yeah, just wonderful creative things. So we're going to consider doing that. And when the time comes, when the governor says that we can begin to reassemble, we are certain that it's going to probably be numerical, and that initially that might mean only 50 people can gather together, and that they may have to also practice social distancing. So it's going to look very, very different. So we're looking at the idea of whether it's feasible to have one service with 50 people practicing social distancing and live streaming that service, or whether or not we have 5 different services with 50 people doing, social distancing, but coming together under the same building. So we're struggling to understand that, but we put together a committee to work on the timeline for what's going to happen.
Great. How about you, Rabbi? Anything to add on that?
Yeah, we've done the same thing. We have a contingency planning committee, but just like the governor has laid out these different stages, until we get to those different stages, we don't know when this is going to happen. Right. And I think also the concern is that even when we can gather with 10, 20, or even up to 50 people, can people who are over 60 or 65 or who are immunocompromised join us during that time? So there may be an opportunity for hybrid. And again, as I said earlier, what does this mean in terms of worship, in terms of singing?
So I think people will appreciate knowing that, our faith community, just like our city, just like the businesses that we work for, our nonprofits, are working to try and develop plans. But again, we all have the uncertainty of knowing when we'll be moving into the different phases and how those phases may change over time as more data is collected by public health officials and they have more information. Let's end with a final question for each of you. In terms of something that you're really proud of that the faith community has done since the pandemic, and if there's a silver lining in this situation that we're all going through right now, what do you think that silver lining is? So let's start with you, Rabbi London, and then we'll have Rabbi Neighbor, or Reverend Neighbors.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that.
Maybe we still don't have Rabbi London. So Reverend Neighbors, Dr. Neighbors, give us the silver lining in what you're proud of in terms of this community and the faith community and what they've done.
Sure. Well, 2 or 3 things. One, Mayor, I'm really proud of the way Evanston has responded to the coronavirus. I'm proud of the fact that you have jumped on this right away, that you created the pandemic task force, and that it has been working literally overtime to try to educate and inform the community. I think that's great. I think with regard to Second Baptist, the thing that I'm most proud of is that we've been able to create real opportunities for folks to become very literate in the online technology. We have a lot of our members who are 65 and over, 75 and over. And I asked them a few weeks ago to write me a letter because, you know, that's a lost art form. So I got about 100 letters that came in from folks. The average age is about 70 or 75. And they were talking about how much they enjoyed learning about online and how much they have been enjoying our streamlined worship services. So that's things that we're proud of. In terms of a silver lining, Mayor, well, you know, of course there's a silver lining. The sun rose this morning, you know, flowers are blooming, birds are chirping. I saw a cardinal landing on one of the red tulips in my backyard. The best in the human spirit, I think, is rising to meet this tragedy together. And in the sort of colloquialism of the Black church, we don't believe that God brought us this far to leave us. So as we get through this, the best is yet to come.
Wonderful words. Thank you, Reverend. How about you, Rabbi London? Is there a silver lining to this incredibly difficult time?
Well, I think that we've come together in many ways stronger as a community. We've had people reaching out to everybody to call everybody in the congregation. There's been really wonderful intergenerational moments as Dr. Nabors is talking about, in which young people are helping older people figure out how to use the technology. We're pairing people up, relationships are developing even at this distance. So that's been a beautiful silver lining. We're putting out a yard sign at Beth Emet, and we're gonna have people put it up in their yards around the city, which says, Olam Chesed Yibaneh, which is from the Psalms. And I mean, like, the power of love has been very strong at this point, and we need to continue to build the world of love. We're not going to go back to normal, in which we live in our little isolated atomistic way, but have come together more strongly, and we're going to come out of this as greater and a stronger and a more loving community is what we're hoping and praying for. I'm certainly seeing that at my community, and certainly seeing that in Evanston in general. And that's what I think the silver lining will be, is let's remember is that we're going to be kinder and more generous and more loving as we come out of this, because we know we need to work together to do that. And how powerful. I'll bring a sign over to City Hall too, Mayor.
Good. We'd love to have that at City Hall. And, you know, it's not often that we have disasters in this country that affect every single person in the country. Not affecting everybody equally. Some are certainly being impacted in a much greater way, but everybody is. And so my hope of a silver lining is that empathy that we're seeing here in Evanston for everybody in the community, hopefully we will see that around this entire country.
Yeah.
So thank you to both of you for spending some time with our viewers today. Thank you to both of you for your leadership in the faith community. I will just leave a couple of things with our viewers that I think that the faith community has really been leaders in is one, food insecurity that has risen greatly as a result of this pandemic. So many of our faith organizations have been stepping up to provide food to people. The homeless, which has always been an issue in our community. Both of your churches or houses of worship and other houses of worship here have worked on that, but there is a lot being done to try and help people with housing. And then lastly is all of the new rules and the orders that we have, and the fact that we have to wear face coverings, and that it was Evanston Own It, one of the groups you talked about at the very beginning. Yeah. Who has really done a great service in the community, providing over 5,000 masks or face coverings to folks in the community, which is making a difference. So I appreciate your leadership on the task force. I look forward to working with all of our faith leaders as we continue to respond to and recover from the pandemic. So thank you. Be well to both of you.
Thank you.
See you again.
Thank you, Mayor.